Welcome to Beauty and the Mess. We are here with Nina Fitzgerald, founder of Only. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This has been awesome.
Yeah, so I'm excited to hear and learn a little bit more even that I probably do not know about your journey and path to creating Only. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started?
Yeah. Probably from childhood. My father's a doctor, and he always taught us to investigate. My mom always taught us to find out everything about life and just make it happen. So when I became a hairstylist, I was always allergic to a lot of the products that I used, and I always got little bumps, or my head got super greasy or oily, and I just attributed that to just being the products. But I couldn't find something that just made my hair feel clean that I could also use on my skin. Because I would have one that I could use in my hair and then one I use in my skin, but I like less products. So I just decided I'm just going to make this. And I had this bright idea, and I knew how it was going to feel, and I knew how it was going to act. And I found a chemist in the UK. We worked together for about 9 months and made the first product that I came out with, which was an oil-free conditioner that can be used as a co-wash. But it's used head to toe. So Only is the only skincare line that's also a hair care line, and vice versa. Both double efficacy. You have either one or the other, but you don't have a line that actually works for both. So through working as a stylist, I actually get to see how it looks in real time, work with people, see what the reactions are. And the big thing about Only is that it only has what's essential and only has what is necessary to make it happen. So most of the products are 7 ingredients or less. They're super minimal, and I always follow EU standards and I follow Japanese standards, and anything that is used by the National Cancer Institute or St. Jude's, because it's really important to me to have high quality products, but to also be accessible to everybody on earth.
What inspired you to have the high quality products? Was that your journey of not being able to have products on your hair, or is there a larger mission behind it?
A lot of it's laziness. And it's really nice to have simplicity. And we in this world keep adding on and adding on and adding on. And why do we have so many things? And then I really thought about that. Why do I have so many things?
So that was the question that got it all started.
Yeah, and why can't I do something? If somebody tells me no, then obviously that's exactly where I'm going. I'm I'm going to figure this out.
And so does that filter into your life and your personal life and business?
Everything. Because I've always been taught that, especially when I went from minimal ingredients, I wanted high quality and I keep living this rule out every single time. Buy cheap, buy twice.
True.
Why not have something that's high quality? Why go for something that has lower standards? When you always want the higher standards, because you're always going to buy the one that has higher standards. Mm-hmm. Why not already have that? So in life, I love creating, discovering. I have 2 small kids, and we play all the time. But there's always something that I'm always learning from them. They're always teaching me. I'm not teaching them. I'm here to watch their little consciousness come into play and also discover new ways to see things. They've taught me ways where I could shift or change something about a new product, about Only, that I could use in different ways. You can use it from infancy all the way to elder care. You can use it on rashes, sunburns, scalps, psoriasis, eczema, because Only is about balancing, and it's about bringing harmony back to the skin. And if you can allow the skin and scalp and hair to balance, then the body will actually take care of itself. And it's not about what you put on, it's about what's within.
Beautiful. So how has that, it's about what's within, and the simplicity and balance and harmony been integrated into your life as an entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh, this is the best question. It has really taught me to, when I'm actually creating something, it's not about where it specifically goes. I just have to know how I specifically feel. If I want the energy and the excitement, then I focus on that, and then everything just falls into play. But it's when we stop actually focusing on what the real problem is. Like, I have a lot of people, they'll say like, well, my scalp is so oily. I said, well, why are you using products that have oil in them? And they're like, but my scalp gets oily. And it's, so we don't tend to hear what's right in front of us, even though it's always giving us the answer,
right,
until we actually let it down as to what my question was. We can react to the situation, but until we actually step back and say, well, what do I want from this? What am I really trying to achieve? It was about self for me, about this balances me, but then I learn how to balance everybody else, because you're not going to experience it from just seeing it. You have to actually feel it and have the full experience of, like, my hair and skin was never broken. I'm never broken. Like,
that's key.
It
right
aligns
there.
something inside of you where I don't have to have so many different products to make something work, because it was never broken.
Right.
But if you continually add in products that have a lot of either oils or silicones, dimethicones, not to say that those aren't good, but when you have excess builds up, and excess will cause build up,
Right.
which cycles back to the same problem.
Right.
So
Just like having stuff.
Yeah, if I take out the oils and I take out the silicones, dimethicones, I take out all of the other things, our body is made up of primarily water, so just focus on water. My products are all water-based, but they will emulsify into any oil. So I have one that is scent-free. Like, only the first one will have a fragrance. It's a natural essential oil isolate, which is just made from essential oils. But all the rest will be fragrance-free. So they're really DIY. One of them has just the base. It says 5 ingredients. I added aloe into it. You can make that into your own skin lotion, hair lotion. You can add in, if you want to add in vitamin E, jojoba, coconut, shea, any essential oil. You can literally make it for yourself. And that's what it brings it back to, like, what do I need? Mm-hmm. I can predict what you want and what you need, but really what you need is the most essential, because you've always been able to make it. Mm-hmm. And it really teaches people that there isn't a magic behind it, but the magic is always here.
Right. Right. So bringing that back into, like, how you run your business or how you are in your home, with that simplicity and looking at what's right there and more of only what you need, what does that look like?
This is actually the funniest question, because instead of my life, instead of work, instead of even personal, even if you caught me in the store, life is a treasure hunt for me. Every single thing that you stumble upon has a duality. We can decide if it's a positive or a negative, but they're both, so it's not one or the other.
Right.
So even inside of only, when I have that thought of, like, this is what I want, okay, now it's going to come. But I don't set a regulation as to how it's going to come or when it's going to come. It's just going to come. So then I get to sit back and just say, okay. And then I wait for it, but it always arises in ways that I would never have thought. But I have that momentum. I'm like, it's like a child at Christmas, where every day is Christmas, or every day is a holiday. Every day is just like that magical day that is like, what do I get to find? Which is very childlike, which with the 2 boys comes back to that. But even with only, if there are times that I don't want to do anything, I don't do anything. There's like there's a 3-month span that I said, you know what, I have things that I want to work on with personal and family life where we can actually have deeper connections. So Only's going to sit off to the side. And Only still grew, which is so cool to see the energetics of, we're still creating, we're not stopping, but it will still follow behind you, because it's not about getting to a certain point outside. It's coming back to alignment with self. And when you're aligned, it doesn't matter what you do.
Right. And curiosity is the antidote to fear. So you're with that curiosity opening up and releasing the fear to allowing.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds unconventional, but then we were born into unconditional, and we will leave unconditionally. The middle is where we're supposed to play, and where we're supposed to connect and feel and interact and discover. And with only, I can reach so many people, but I can also spread that same amount of energy. Here, take this, try this. Like, what did you get? What are your thoughts? What does this spurn inside of you? Like, how would you recreate this? Because every single time that I have somebody that's come into my life and said like, hey, what about this? I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Like,
so it's constantly reinventing itself.
Always, because there isn't a model. And since I'm CEO, helps. But if everybody just took that same approach to life as to what do I get to learn out of this? What can I see inside of somebody else that also sparks something inside of me, where we could to be in this really cool creating plane.
Right, and co-create. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you initially find yourself open to that creative process with being a hairstylist and having your workload and then creating a product? How did you allow that play and creativity?
I used to ask myself this question all the time. And I used to have this thought in my mind that you can't have both. And then I thought, well, if that one statement is true, then the opposite is true. Because if there truly is duality, which there always is, then let's just see that in play. And it all depends on keeping the creativity, because if you stick to a schedule, it becomes monotonous. There's no play in that. We aren't,
right.
It doesn't allow for freedom. And so I had to teach myself, but not really. I had to break down walls inside of myself, because I've always been the person that flits from cloud to cloud. And I thought that was a detriment for the longest time, because I liked to keep discovering. But then that's what we do as children. We keep discovering, and we find new ways to do things. So I was thinking, okay, if I don't have a schedule that I stick to all the time, but I still have responsibilities that I hone into, but then I keep asking myself, what is in my highest good? Then that plays out.
Directs you.
Yes, and that when I actually ask for something, hey, I need this person to come into my life now, and I mean it, that person just comes into my life. Like one time I asked the universe for a cupcake and a coffee, and it showed up that day. I was like, this is great.
So you start small.
You start small. You find those little things.
Start simple.
Yeah, what you can do. And with only, I mean, I'd never started a product line. I'd never found a manufacturer, found bottling, found all of the processes. And people ask me all the time, like, how'd you do it? And I said, oh, well, I started like Googling, like how to find manufacturer. And then I was like, well, I'll just ask this to the people around me, because we create, but we don't have to always start from scratch. There is no scratch. There's all this collective thought that's already here around us. So just ask the people around you. And somebody's got a cousin of a cousin that does that. And you're like, perfect. We'll just download that information in my mind, and then we can go to the next one. And so I'd have this like, okay, I need to find this. And then that person would arrive, and I'd ask them my questions. They would answer, and then they'd give me other questions to like also think about, and I'd go through that. And by the end of the process, where I'm just having fun like finding people, I'm like, oh, we've gotten here. And I remember telling somebody like, oh, it's gonna be like 2 months, and I'll have this whole product line. And they're like, no. It's gonna be like 3 years. I was like, no. And it's been 3 years.
Well, but you had your product in
Yeah.
how many months? Your first product, when you had your first
First
formula.
product was July of 2017. But then I had to realize that it wasn't about the time frame, because we're not trying to like get to a point of like, I've completed this, because it's always the journey.
Right. It is.
We can just keep, I mean, if I wanted to stretch out to 5 years, then as long as I'm still having fun finding new ways, and it's through the people that offered me the most contrast. They are my best and biggest teachers in my life, and it took until this year to really realize how that expands me of like, what did I have resistance to? What was I fighting? What was the doubt inside of my mind that stopped me from pushing forward? And a lot of that self-limiting, like, what is power? Like, what happens when you get to a certain point? Is there really a duality? And then I had to stop back and ask myself, like, do I firmly and like with my whole heart believe these things? And I was like, no. So then it comes back to that, like, no, if I believe that this is possible,
Right.
that there is no expanse that you can't ever walk into, because you're also providing that vibration that draws others into that vibration, and then you're all manifesting and co-creating together. Let's say if one person had all of the money in the world, but if they were constantly like giving it out and also just like expanding others in the same process, then we're all up leveling.
Yeah.
We're all empowering. And as long as you don't power, and we create the rules and the structure and the things that you have to follow in order to do a certain thing, but you empower and lift them up and like be on the same level, because we are already on the same level. But it's this harnessing of the mind that stops us from actually like up leveling into that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What have been some of your biggest challenges, or like what is one of your biggest that comes to mind when you think about your challenges and growth?
Challenges would be that I have so many things that I love to think about, that I do have to...
Like multi-passion.
Yes, I do have to actually, when I'm thinking about only, specify the questions like, what do I want with only? Who am I? What shapes it? What
so you're reminding
image?
yourself.
Yeah, I have to still come back to, this is the brand, and the brand signifies an emotion, a being, an energy. It's not, even if I sold to like 3 people, but those 3 people like are enough. Like, even if I made barrels of it for myself, like that's enough.
Right. Because you're going back to your why. I love that. Actually, Joanna Gaines, I remember, said something very similar at the Alt Summit, which I attended earlier.
That's cool.
This year. I'm like, wait, are we in 2020 yet?
Is
that last year or this year? We're so close. You know, I think that there's so much on find your why, yet actually you have to go back to that why.
You have to always.
All the time. You don't just find it once.
Yeah.
You have to keep reminding yourself of your why.
Because it keeps shifting.
So that you make your decisions in alignment. Right. I love that. So what would you say for someone, you've kind of answered it, but I'd be curious just to see what you respond with on, what would you say for people that are maybe, you know, in the corporate world and have an idea that they may think is a little crazy, yet they know they kind of want to follow it? What would you say?
Oh, this is the best one too. I would say the crazier the better, because in order to be childlike, you have to learn how to daydream again. And it's that daydreaming that aligns us and alights us with that true, like, that like breath of fire that like brings all of these things that are possible. And when you daydream and when you bring those up into focus, imagine the patterns that come up that tell you the don'ts, the shouldn'ts, the couldn'ts, the like, what are those things that keep repeating, and write those down. And then realize that those were words that were given to you by someone else, that those were conditioned upon you because you came into this world without the conditioning. But because of those, you've gained the insight as to where you are. So you still have to thank that person for everything that you've been taught and for all the shouldn'ts, couldn'ts, wouldn'ts. And if you stop focusing on the fact that this certain thing happened and this is why you can't get to this point, then you don't walk into that new point of like fully like aligning, because you have to allow that to just be. And then once you have that daydream, where does that daydream land? Like, where do you see yourself? What does it do for you? What is the feeling? If it's the feeling of just money, well, we can work forever and work really hard and we can still make money, but we can also work very, very little and still make money. Like, if you wanted to catch butterflies for the rest of your life, you could make
I totally do.
You could make a killing at it because you would be the best butterfly catcher ever. But it would ignite you. It would like give you just like the sense of wonderment because you were just being free. And everybody wants that sense of freedom. We want to just alight. We want what somebody else has, and if we're around them, then we can get it. But we never take it because we always had it. Yeah. But until we can actually like burn that same fire, and I keep doing this because as adults we learn to like breathe from our chests, and we get short chest, or we get a lot of upper respiratory infections, we get a lot of lung tightness, asthma, because our fire doesn't burn from here. Like our fire burns from our deep belly, and as babies and puppies, they breathe from the very bottom of their soul and the very bottom of their stomach, and it pulls that fire, and that's when you get the chill bumps where you know something's automatically right, and you align with it. Do the little things that pop into your head, but start listening, because
I love that.
It's always right when you're listening, and it doesn't matter if you think of one thing and then you change 5 minutes later. You're compounding, and as a human being, we're compounding. We're always finding the new ways, and if you fully don't align with the whole life that you have planned, that's awesome.
It might not be the life you're meant to have.
Yeah, then you get to go on a much bigger treasure hunt. But if we can start to see the little things or the nuances that happen into our life, that they happened for us and not to us, that's all it is. Like, you can be a part of any organization, you can be a part of anything, but does it cause you true happiness? Are you doing it because so-and-so it would make them happy, but not making yourself happy? Because starting something, doing something, being something is all about who we are.
Yeah.
And I've learned that through that it was about getting that message out. It was about spreading that, and I told myself for so long I wasn't a good writer. I just don't type fast. So
I did the same.
Yeah, and I was like, we're great writers. I don't know, I just fumble, and then I go back and I'm like, you have a microphone, speak into a microphone, talk into a podcast. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But start giving the vibration. Start saying it aloud and hearing that. Does it resonate? Does it feel like you?
Yeah.
Do you feel that, yeah, that's me? Yeah. Or does it sound like somebody else? And if it sounds like somebody else, if that makes you happy, that's awesome.
Yeah. I let myself receive support in the beginning, and then through that, I was able to start writing on my own.
Yeah.
Which, would be typically opposite of how I function, because I always jump into everything. And I did jump into it. I just knew I wasn't joyful in it.
And you found that alignment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I immediately found my flow.
That rhythm.
Yeah. So I think there's so many different approaches to everything, but it's, like you said, really listening. And that takes some practice, especially when you're not used to it.
Yeah.
Yet just, like you said, keep taking that step, and it happens. You don't think it's going to if you stay in your head, but it happens. Yeah. I love that.
And the really funny thing is, once you do tune into yourself, and this is what I learned too, is once you start tuning into yourself, everybody else is on the same playing field. Beforehand, people would have hierarchy, but they've done this for X amount of years, they've done this, they know more. But then once you fully tune to yourself, where we are all the same, then every single person that came into my existence after it asked a question, they came into my virtual playing field, they were just people. We're all just people doing the best that we can. It didn't matter if they were CEOs or if they had X amount of anything, they still got to where they were by drinking and eating and sleeping, the same 3 processes I do.
Are you asleep?
Right. Go to sleep. My best thoughts come at 11:30 p.m. Tyler's like, please go to sleep. And I was like, no, because I've got so much to tell you.
And so your mind wakes up at 11:30.
Well, I get these great ideas. And then the other day I wrote 3 seminars. And I'm like, this is great.
Wow.
But it's, in his mind, he's like, you need to sleep. And I was like, oh, but you need to sleep. But I just need to learn how to cohabitate.
With the different sleep cycles.
Yeah, and how our brains are wired. He's not wrong, I'm not wrong. What can I learn from that? And also, what's my resistance? So like, you need to stay awake for me.
What time does he go to sleep?
Oh, he would love to go to sleep at 9. He's like, man, you just keep, but I've learned like, okay, that's his intention and my intention is differently, and I can just write it down and I'll tell him in the morning. We can read it in the morning. But he needs to.
You don't have to keep him up.
Yeah, because I'm like, you need to stay awake for me. I was like, well, that's actually very vain, because he doesn't.
Good for him.
Yeah.
He's following his heart.
Yes. And every day I learn, and I become the student every single day, and that's the biggest thing. Become the student. Sweep the floors. Fold the towels. Wipe things down. Be at ground level.
You're still doing laundry?
He'd probably say no. He does the laundry. I was like, sometimes I pick up my messes. But I make very organized piles of messes, which he'll disagree with right now. But
that's cute.
There's beauty in the mess.
There is beauty in the mess.
But it's always returning to self. What is self?
I love that. It's been really neat to see your journey in both your personal and professional life, and truly as an entrepreneur, to see your mission for only carrying the brand and your product and really getting to the hearts of the people. And it's just so beautiful to see that. I'm excited to continue to see where it goes.
So stoked.
And so you got to show everybody your Beauty in the Mess leggings.
So these are my Beauty in the Mess leggings, because
speaking of Beauty in the Mess,
let's just show them like this. It's awesome. That was a really good stance. But I had a dream that I needed to talk to Robin, and I needed to get a story out. And it was a story that she would be able to bring out of me and also return me back to self. I knew that she was a co-creator that was also on a path to just huge expansion. So another thing, find those people that expand you, find those people that ignite that inside of you, or that you can't just understand why they're a part of your life, but they're so important. So I said, Robin, I need a painting. And then she said, well, I make the leggings as part of it. I'm like, this is awesome, because I love leggings.
And what was the intention behind the painting for Only?
The intention was to understand that there is not one plane to life. There are so many different ways that you can see videos, sound, pictures, paintings, ways you can decipher what you see in an art museum through many different dialects and visions. But each time you see that, it evokes something new, something you haven't seen before. And each time I view my painting, there's another layer that I wasn't aware of, or there's a way that the colors blended that I wasn't aware of. And that's really how we operate as people. Like, what layer are we not aware of that we need to see? And what are we resisting that we're not wanting to see? Why do we do the things that walk us down paths? And so the painting, every time I see it, because it's down a long hallway at the end, and every time I walk towards it, it's a new vision as to everything is still floating together and still combining, but there isn't a structure in which it follows a certain way. It just creates. And to keep remembering that we're just in creation. We're here to form that connection. We're here to invite others to be along with us on that. And it doesn't have to have a timeline. It doesn't have to have a special place that it sits, or inside of a cubby, or in a special folder. Like, you just have to see it in its rawness, and we have to see ourselves in our rawness, and what are the basic small things that we need for ourselves. And it always brings us back to, what is our love?
I love that. And so you can purchase Only at, as well as the Only Beauty in the Mess leggings at, what is your site?
So it's onlybynina.com, and also at Urban Betty here in Austin, Texas. We have 2 locations, one at 38th and Lamar and one at South Congress and St. Elmo.
And how can we find you on social media?
Social media, Only by Nina Fitzgerald, and the Purple Olive Studio, which is my wedding and hair business, but mainly the Only by Nina Fitzgerald.
I love that.
Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. This has been awesome.
I know. It's so special to really hear you share your mission and purpose and vision, really, for making a difference in the world.
Thank you. And I really appreciate what you've evoked out of me.
Oh my gosh, it's my honor.
Yeah. It's been such a fun path.
Yes, it has.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Beauty and the Mess. Feel free to visit Robin on Instagram at Robin_Emmerich. And we'll see you next time.